Okay, we'll go get the other cake.
How's everybody doing today? We having a good day so far? Yeah. Hey, did anybody get any early ride time today?
Yeah.
How was that?
Good.
Anybody ride Griffin?
Yeah.
All right, what about favorite rides we got at Busch Gardens? What about Griffin? Raise your hand.
So far.
Clap. Griffin.
So far.
How about Apollo's Chariot?
Haven't ridden it yet.
Apollo's Chariot seems to be winning a little bit here. What about Invader? All right, we'll go with Invader. How's everybody like Invader? Our first venture in the wood roller coaster.
Haven't ridden it yet.
Isn't that great? We got Tepesto. Well, one of the reasons we're all kind of here today is Loch Ness Monster, right? Hard to believe, 40 years ago in June, Loch Ness Monster opened. Everybody remembers the records it held at the time, right? It was the tallest, fastest, steepest, with the only interlocking loops. And it still is the only interlocking loops. And the other thing about Loch Ness is it's really stood the test of time. We've got a lot of great coasters in this park. And I think everybody here can pretty much attest that they all ride Loch Ness when they're here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the, if you think about what it took to build Loch Ness in its day, you know, it opened in '78, so it probably started in '75. I was still in high school, so we can kill those rumors, right? I wasn't here when it built, but I remember back in the, about that same time frame, my uncle brought home this fancy little box called a calculator. So really, they did a lot of the work on calculators, slide rules, pen and paper, and they really did a phenomenal job to help it stand up to time. And it's really just a ride that everybody gets to ride over and over again and comes back and enjoy it. I remember when I first started here, I've been here 30 years. One of my first projects at Busch Gardens was actually to build the cake table. And so I drew it up and had it up by Loch Ness. And I don't know how many here were at the 10th anniversary. I was here. And that was my first venture into theme parks. And I really appreciated all the ACE people that showed up that day in 1988. And I was just blown away by the enthusiasm you folks have for theme parks and roller coasters. I think we gave early ride time that morning, and I don't think we could get you guys off the ride, if I remember right. I don't know if that sounds right or not. Some of the things I've been involved with, I was, one of my first projects, I've heard a couple folks mention the name, and it happened to be right over there. Anybody know what that was?
Rocket Fire.
Yeah, this is probably the only group I ever talked to that actually knows the name of that. I mean, everybody here seems to know, okay. So that was a really interesting project. And, people will always say, we have, two rides that I've been here since we've taken out. Big Bad Wolf, I know, is a favorite here. And Drachenfire. And why is Loch Ness still here? And I think it all comes down to the technology that was happening in that time frame. There was a lot of leaps and bounds happening, especially the computer side. I was going out to Aero when we were doing Drachenfire, and they started this new thing called CAD. And they actually had a special they got money from the state to develop a whole CAD program, and they were drawing it all in CAD for the very first time. They had a whole army full of drafters on with mouse and old CRTs and doing their thing. Well, so with CAD, I think at the time it got to be very exciting because we could do more things. You could accurately design the curves and the twists and the turns. I believe the problem when Drachenfire came in fabrication. Fabrication was still hadn't caught up to the CAD advancements at the time. They were still using levels, they were using transits, they were using thumb bobs, scribes on the floor is how they were building it. There was numerous times when we were building a ride and we had to build it in stops and starts. We actually, the way I remember it, is we had to start in one area, and we ran out of track, but they had track in another area. We built that one. We had like 4 or 5 different starts without a continuous track. And part of the problem with that is that we come up to a piece of where we had our foundations in place. The track was here, and the foundation was there. It missed it by feet. And part of that was a lot of the fabrication that was going on at the time. It just hadn't caught up to the design, the turns and twists. You think about Loch Ness. Look at where all the high-speed points of the ride are. They're all near the bottom of the track, where the track is nice and straight. You're pulling G-forces. But all you got to do is produce straight track in a single curve. You're not doing dual curves. Your slow sections of track are up high. You're doing big horizontal curves. So that's what makes Loch Ness still staying around. One of the interesting things is when we run instrumentation on Drachenfire, it passed all the current tests, and I believe it probably would pass today. Part of the reason everybody asks, why isn't Drachenfire here? And it really comes down to rideability. About that same time frame, we had another ride in the park. I don't know if anybody's ridden Alpengeist. Heard of that ride? Sounds like a few have. Basically, B&M at the time set a new standard for fabrication. They were blowing everybody out of the water. And we got the benefit of that with Alpengeist, and again with Paul's Chariot, following up right behind it. Some of the interesting things about Drachenfire that I remember, I mean, I was in my early 30s and pretty cocky, thinking we could pull off just about anything. The train didn't used to go all the way around, which is usually a problem with roller coasters, right? When we first started testing it, we used to get stuck in what we called the bat wing. It was come off the lift, go over the gravity hill, and you go into that bat wing, and it'd come up to the lock brake, it'd stop about 10 feet short and roll backward, all the way around. A lot of that had to do with cold, which we picked up pretty quick. Temperatures at the time, we opened that. That was one of the first. The goal of that project was open in the spring, which we thought was a great idea until it was, 45 degrees. And we ran into the cold problems with the ride. We actually, I don't know how many people remember, the heaters used to be on the lift going up the hill. We used to actually turn those on in certain temperatures, heat the wheels up. Actually, Keith Kaysen was our general manager at the time. He went on to become chairman of the board for Busch Entertainment. He was up there at the Fest House giving the speech of getting ready to open Drachenfire. We were actually down there. We had a number of concrete blankets we had placed over the ride, had these concrete heaters heating up the ride and trying to get it nice and warm. Right when he got to a certain spot, I got a signal with the old beeper, no cell phones in the day, and we started sending it around and checking the speeds, verified we were good, the wheels were good and hot. Once we got it running, this wheel stayed warm. And then we opened it up that day. Those were pretty exciting days. Since then, we've gone on at Busch Gardens. I've been lucky enough to be part of a lot of great projects here. Alpengeist was one of them. We got to Apollo's Chariot. A lot of that time, Loch Ness actually influenced a lot of that design. We really like the way when Loch Ness, you come over the top of the lift, you got that nice little space of time before the drop. You actually make a little turn before the drop. Gives everybody a chance to kind of get their bearings. You paid to get up that high, right? So why don't you take a look around? That's why the extra 50 foot is up on top of Paul's Chariot. You come off the top of the lift, you go over, you spend a little time up there and really seeing, the idea there was to let our riders see exactly what it feels like to be way up high and what you're getting ready to do. The other thing about Apollo's Chariot that was neat was we timed it so all the drops went all the ravines. So obviously everybody's here, been around the park, we have lots of terrain. And so we try to take a lot of advantage with the terrain. So in taking that advantage, of course, we were able to create a ride that was very unique. In fact, I got a call from Walter. We actually had to convince B&M to do that ride. They were at the time building Batmans, and they were building Alpengeist, and a lot of Raptor up in Cedar Point, a lot of rides that turned and twisted. This one, straight out, straight back. And we knew that B&M with the way they built track and the way they could manage the speeds of the vehicles, would do a great job with that project. And when they came and they finally decided they agreed to do it, and I remember Claude Maviar, the first time he rode, he got off the ride, and he said, I never thought a design so simple would be such a great ride. So that's kind of how Apollo's Chariot came to be. We had a lot of great fun with Griffin. We rode the first dive coaster at Alton Towers and realized what a great product that is. That is just something phenomenally different. Our folks in St. Louis at the time, we had a lot of creative folks that came up with a great idea. Hey, instead of just doing what Alton Towers does, let's do some more with it, you know? And that's where Sheepra started coming from. And then, of course, we tagged on to what Sheepra did and added 2 emblems. And frankly, Griffin, and I know I'm probably not the only one in this audience, and probably that's my favorite ride. How about that? Whose favorite ride's Griffin?
The one I've ridden so
It's a
far.
great one, isn't it? So Big Bad Wolf, whose favorite ride was Big Bad Wolf? You know, it's hard to compete with a ride that doesn't run anymore, right?
He had my favorite ride off.
You know, I rode Griffin the last day it was open, and you know, it wasn't as smooth as the first day I rode it. It's a Big Bad Wolf shirt there. It was a great ride, 42-inch, unbelievable height restriction there. Another great Aero ride. So Aero, you know, we start off at this park with 3 great rides. You know, we start off with Loch Ness Monster, and then Big Bad Wolf, and then of course Rockin' Fire. And then Aero had their troubles, and we really haven't seen them produce a lot since. And we've kind of switched around and moved around and tried to keep up with the technology. But, you know, despite all that, all the great things, you know, over at you know, for Bolton, which we tried to, there's definitely some nods to Big Bad Wolf over there. That last drop was placed just on top of the old foundations on purpose. That was not an accident. That was a nod. You know, part of the problem was that ride had really, you know, everybody says, what happened to Big Bad Wolf? That ride had really met its time. There was a lot of maintenance going on with that ride. We needed trains, all new trains, we needed all new track. And we didn't have the same manufacturers available in that day doing that kind of track. So that's why we changed directions and we moved over to Bolton. And we wanted to do something unique on Bolton, which that's where the vertical drop came from. The neat thing about the vertical drop was actually built that a year ahead. We talked to Zier. We knew Zier would be a great partner, and they were. They actually built that in their shop and had it running for 3 months, the year before Bolton actually opened. We just wanted to make sure everything worked according to what we thought. The neat thing about Zier, they're owned by a big company called Stryker. They build these offshore platforms and big-time engineering. Well, Zier didn't have enough room in their shop, so they had to use Stryker's shop. And so they went over to Stryker, and that's where they started assembling it. Well, like any of us engineers, when you see something going on, no matter if it's your project or not, you'd like to poke your nose into it, right? Well, Zier comes back and tells me, hey, we had to add a whole bunch of stuff because of all the Stryker engineers got all interested in what we were doing. They thought it was a lot more fun than what they were doing. But so Bolton came along. We ventured into Invader, as everybody said. Hopefully everybody likes that. Invader. The wood coasters really give you a unique ride experience, I think. We felt very comfortable with the hybrid system that we have, that we can keep that ride experience. The problem we always thought with wood roller coasters was they're great year one, but how do they go year to year to year? But
Wazzy.
with the nice stable system that we have over there, we feel very good about that. But it really leads us right back to Loch Ness Monster. It's still here. It's still doing its thing. Everybody here probably rode it today, right? Who did?
Yep.
I could probably ask who didn't ride Loch Ness Monster and get a much smaller hand. There's only one over there I see. He's willing to admit. But anyway, hopefully, I mean, you see our cake over here. You see the amount of people on the cake. And you see the amount of people here today, and it's really incredible the way your group is done, the support you guys have, the enthusiasm we see all the time. It's really exciting, the background knowledge you guys all have. I mean, you're not a typical rider that we get here. You can usually tell, you know, all of the smart people can usually tell when one of you comes up because of the quality of the questions that you guys always offer. As soon as you offer a question, we automatically know, oh, that guy's with Ace. You know, he knows what he's doing. It's not something very simple. So anyway, in concluding, I'd like to offer a gift to Jerry Willard. Jerry, you here? There he is. So Jerry, this is a gift from Busch Gardens. It's where it all started, 1978 at Loch Ness Monster. Thank you very much. Everybody, oh, thank you. Everybody, you guys have a great time at Busch Gardens. Enjoy your time here.